Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports.
Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports with Tyler Drake and Lauren Koval.
What's going on, Bird Gang? And if you're watching this, yes, we have officially made the 53-man roster here at Arizona Sports. I'm Tyler Drake. That's Lauren Koval here for another edition of Cardinals Corner. And yes, like I just said, 53-man roster just dropped. The initial one, I should say, as things are going to be very different. Jonathan Gannon even said himself, the dust has not yet settled there. But we might as well dive in and see what we got. We've got a blueprint to come off of ahead of week 1 against Buffalo. So first, Lauren, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a little bit.
I know. I'm doing well. It's nice to see you in person.
Yes. It's been a lot of days down there at the training facility, but we're back. We're in the studio, ready to go. So let's look right at it. 53-man roster dropped. I think for the most part, a lot of us knew who was making the roster, but there were some surprise additions. Let's start there. Who was somebody that really caught your eye of, oh, wow, I did not maybe think he was making the roster and ended up making it?
I think my biggest surprise and my biggest addition kind of play hand in hand because it was the fact that they added DJ Dallas to the 53-man roster while removing Michael Carter.
Okay.
That was sort of my biggest surprise was how that running back room shaped out. We talked about if they were going to keep 5, if that's where they were at. They decided against it. I was surprised in the end how that room shaped up, but it was the room that had the greatest depth to begin with. They really, whatever person you had to get rid of in that room was still going to be great.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's got to be for subtractions we call it, cuts. Definitely Michael Carter's in that mix for sure. Obviously, as I just mentioned, the dust has not settled on what's going on, and he actually is back on the practice squad. So a good move there for the Cardinals. He's not on the active roster, but they still have him in the building, and you can clearly tell that they really liked what all those running backs brought to the table. Obviously, DJ Dallas, I felt was a lock just because of his special teams ability. Like, he really showed in that joint practice in Indy, just his ability to put somebody else in the ground and really be a factor in that side of the game. So on that side, yeah, it's the running backs room is pretty legit. It's pretty stacked. I think there's any of those guys, even Michael Carter being on the practice squad, could come in and give you some good touches if need be. So definitely a lot going on there. I think for me, the biggest person that made the roster surprise has to be tight end Travis Vokolek. Just because I really didn't have him on the radar much, but I think they really like what he brings as a blocking tight end, and he can also be a factor in special teams. So we'll see how that all shakes out moving forward with the 53 because it's always going to be changing. Any other subtractions that really stuck out to you?
I think that to your tight end point there, today, Jonathan Gannon discussed that Tip Ryman dealing with a little bit of an injury.
We don't really know if it's injury, though. It's undisclosed. He's not at practice right now. He said he should be back Monday, but we're not quite sure if it's injury or maybe he's got some family stuff or personal reasons going on. But yeah, he's not at practice right now.
So for whatever reason, that may be personal, not practicing, injury, who knows. Mm-hmm. I think that the addition of him to the tight end room now creates this suddenly stacked tight end room that we weren't originally really keeping our eye on. We had Tip in there for blocking, and we have, Trey McBride, stellar. And then you even discussed how Elijah is sort of like come into his own during this training camp and really has cemented himself as a firm spot in that roster. Any other subtractions sort of play into the fact that there are so many players on the IR to start the season for the Cardinals?
Yes. Yep.
And I think we've got to dive into that. But that being said, the group of edge rushers that they decided to keep when looking at that, getting rid of Cam Thomas, sending him to the Chiefs. I was interested once the 53-man roster dropped to see how they were going to sort of plug and play that position group specifically.
How did you feel? Did you think Cam deserved a roster spot?
Yes.
From what he did in preseason?
Yes.
Okay.
And the way that he talked about, he had a meeting with the media maybe 5 or 6 days before he was traded away. No. And he was very openly discussing, here's where I've improved. Here's where I still need to work on. But here's why I have confidence in this scheme, in this team, and why I think I'm in the right position to succeed. And part of that was the continuity that he's now experienced from the previous years being on the Cardinals. He now understands what Gannon wants from him and what sort of a Nick Rallis run defense looks like. So I was surprised that they got rid of him. Trading him away to the Chiefs for a 7th rounder, to me, sort of indicates he wasn't going to make the 53-man. The Chiefs didn't want to miss out on getting him once he went to waivers, and they went, okay, we need to claim him right away. They did it for a 7th rounder, which did surprise me.
Okay. Yeah. I think for me, the biggest subtraction, which we'll get into the latest development on that, had to be Chris Barnes, though. I think that's right there. I thought for sure. I know Owen Papo has really come on in year 2. He's really taken that next step, especially during joint practice, especially during preseason. But I really thought Chris Barnes had a spot on the initial 53 easily right away. And obviously that wasn't the case. They only kept 3 in that inside linebackers room, and I could really see Mack Wilson being used on the edge a lot this year, just given what he can bring off of, just being another pass rusher potentially in that room. But yeah, Barnes was definitely the big one, but as Gannon said, the dust hadn't settled on everything, and today he actually was brought back to the active roster. He was signed back onto the practice squad, brought onto the active roster, and instead they had to put Elijah Jones on the IR with a heel issue that he suffered in the preseason finale. So really, obviously he didn't make the initial 53, but they knew all along that he was probably coming back on that roster sooner than later with that injury. And like you mentioned, Elijah Jones isn't the only one on the IR right now. The big one, obviously, is Darius Robinson, out for at least 4 games with his calf injury that he suffered during Thursday's practice, which, just a terrible, terrible development there. The dude has been talked about so highly by coaches, by players. Roy Lopez was talking to us today about a lot of different things, and that was one of the big things is, man, like, this guy has got it. He's going to bring it. We're so excited he's here. And obviously it's been a lot of negative, and I thought Roy said it right. He talked about the positive being that he can take a step back and kind of see the field and see the defense in a different way and can grow his knowledge even more because we know he's a football junkie. So that's going to be something I'll be interested to see just kind of moving forward is what is he picking up away from the game and not being able to get those reps in. But obviously a really tough blow. We all saw what he's bringing to the table. He was projected to be a starter in my eyes. If he wasn't there in week 1, it was probably going to be the next couple of weeks after that, and he was going to be a valuable rotational guy right away. So he can come back, I believe, by the Niner game. So we'll have to see if that's a quick return or if he's prolonged a little more, but at least it's not out for the season. I think that's the big thing.
And we don't know exactly what this injury is besides the fact that it is a calf injury. I believe they've been describing it as a strain of some sorts, which leaves a huge question mark on if he is able to come back right after that 4-week period off of the IR. Does he need a little bit more time? Knowing him, he'll want to jump right into the game as soon as possible. And he's in a position to make an immediate impact on this Cardinals team. You don't go out there and spend your first-round draft pick on some guy you don't think is going to make an immediate impact on this team. And that's exactly what they did with Darius. So hopeful that this is a return directly after that 4-week IR period and he returns against the Niners. But it'll be interesting to see how this affects his game, and if once he comes back, do we sort of notice any changes in his game, or is he 100%?
Yeah, and along with him, Christian Jones is on the IR as well. He's designated to return. The same with Darius, though. Tony Jones Jr., however, is on the IR for the season. He's done. So a couple names there to watch as they work their way back.
You don't want the last name Jones, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's a rough go the last couple of days for Joneses. A couple of IR spots there. We'll have to see. Elijah Jones, friend of the show, we've had him on. He looked like he's coming on a little more. Preseason, you could kind of tell it was kind of feeling out process, but I feel like he's taken that next step as a rookie. We'll have to see what happens when he comes back. But as we move into more of we're right about at week 1. We're close. Looking at this roster, how it is currently constructed, it's going to change. Let's not be oblivious to the fact that this is going to look different probably in a couple days.
Yes.
Who knows? Looking at the positions, all the position groups, which ones or one are you still really concerned about going into week 1?
Edge rusher.
Okay.
That is
an easy one.
That's the one immediately that I think everybody goes when you look at that roster. You go, ugh.
Even when Jonathan Gannon said he's comfortable and they're going to be fine?
He said that he was comfortable, like he wanted me to believe I was comfortable. And I'm not comfortable with it. He did say it in a way that also made me, and I know that you were there, and I don't know how you took this, but he said that in a way where it made me go, is there something on the table? Is he trying to make a move? Is he trying to do something? Does he feel more comfortable because he has more knowledge than us in the media sitting here, twiddling our thumbs looking at this edge rusher room? I don't know. I read into it like there was a little bit of a pause in between the I feel comfortable, let's see what happens.
Okay.
And part of that could be because directly before that he has the dust hasn't settled on this roster. Moves will happen. So either he's just trying to prepare us for something happening, or he's saying everything's very flexible. Everything's very movable at this point. So let's see what happens.
See, I almost took it as like he knows that everybody surrounding the team is wondering what's happening with the edge. Like, there's no doubt about it. That's fact. Everybody has questions about the edge rushers. There's other positions that there's some question marks too, but of them all, it's edge rusher, and it's not even close, I don't think, at this point. Obviously, cornerback is a situation where who's going to step up and grab that other role, but right now it's edge rusher. And I think for me, though, it was almost like a Aaron Rodgers relax comment. Like, not quite.
Okay.
And I know they're completely different kind of situations, and I know it's kind of weird, but that was the first thing that came into my mind is like, this is like Rodgers telling everybody to relax. Like, he's saying, like, you guys aren't fine with this. You guys aren't comfortable with this, but I am. We're going to be fine. It's on the coaching staff to get it done. And yes, there needs to be a lot that needs to be shown. I mean, Xavier Thomas has come along, but can he really translate that into the regular season? Zaven Collins just got paid, but can he really show us that next step that everybody's raved about throughout the offseason? Dennis Gardeck, we know what he brings to the table. Can he find that other gear? I mean, Jesse Luketa and Victor Dimukeji, can they make themselves into meaningful or put themselves into meaningful roles? Like, the question marks are so prevalent within that room that you really can't, unless you see them play, you're not going to be able to have a good idea what they're going to bring. And from what we saw last year and the 33 sacks that they had as a defense alone, something has to happen, because that is by far that's the biggest concern on this team right now.
Who do you think currently, with the way that this roster is configured, is going to be the sack leader for the Cardinals?
I think Dennis Gardeck and Zaven are going to get all of the opportunities to do it, but I won't be surprised if a guy like Xavier Thomas really does, click at the next level in the regular season and is in that conversation. I still think Dennis, coming off 6 last year, I think that's very much doable for him, but 6 can't lead the team.
No.
Not at all, especially out of that room. Like, you have defensive linemen get up to that mark, but you need your outside linebackers to produce. And yes, sacks aren't everything. Pressures are important. QB hits are important. All of that's important. But being able to have that tally to fall back on, that's the name of the game right now for that room. And everybody knows it. Everybody knows it.
That's your statistical guide where you can sort of pinpoint one specific thing and go, okay, how is this room doing in general? Or how is this specific player doing in general? You can look back at those sack numbers and go, okay, here's an actual tally of how well I think that you've been performing on the field so far.
Yeah, definitely. Well, is there anything else you wanna pinpoint before we let the people go?
I think that there's an interesting comparison that can be made, and I'm interested to see how it plays out week 1 in between the edge rusher room and the cornerbacks.
Okay.
You just said, which I think you kind of accidentally hit the nail on top of the head there, which was the edge rusher room is a bunch of guys who have a ton of potential that need to reach their potential, and can they do that? And who is going to step up and make this room their own? A lot of different position groups on the Cardinals. We already know who it belongs to. Wide receiver room, we know it's Marvin's. Running back, we know it's James Conner's. I think cornerback is another room where there's a bunch of different guys who have a ton of potential. Some we haven't seen before. We don't know what they're able to do. Some who we just have an innate confidence in because of the way that this team's been talking about them, the way that they talk about each other and the growth in that room. And so that's another room where I just go, okay, who's going to step up? Because it is anybody's room for the taking, and you just need to take that next leap to get there.
Who do you think it's going to be?
Max.
Max?
Max.
That's,
I know he was a little injured during training camp there and a little hurt during that joint practice or the week before.
Right around there, yeah.
Right around that
It's
timeline.
all meshing together.
Yeah, I'm like, at this point, I'm just like, I know it's not, real football.
Yes.
It's preseason
Yeah.
football, but I think that it'll be Max's by the end of the season.
Yeah. I think Sean Murphy-Bunting's obviously the leader in there, veteran leader, but I do think it's very much up for grabs. I think it's going to be Garrett Williams. I think even though obviously, and I don't know why, I feel like some people think nickel isn't a starting role or not as prevalent or not as important as an outside corner, but man, that he can do about everything. And I really do think he's probably one of their best cornerbacks, if not the best cornerback on their roster right now, and has the ability to move inside and out. So I'm really curious to see how that all happens. But he would be a guy that I'm really kind of looking at to see if he can take that next jump as a leader and really command that room. And I think everybody else just kind of fall in line. I think Max, I think you're on there with Max. I think he's very much in that role and can jump into that role. But right now, I think I'm looking at Garrett to kind of take the reins a little bit and control that room.
A lot of young bucks in that room. We'll see what happens.
Yes. Well, with that, we'll let you guys get back to it. Thanks for stopping by again. And like I said, 53-man roster. The initial one is set. I can give you guys a little inside info, though. Will Hernandez's training camp mustache, if I could say it right, is going to make it for the whole season. That's a lock. You can put that in there, take it to the bank. He is rocking that thing hard for the whole year. But with that, we will be back next week as we take a look at the Buffalo-Arizona game for the season opener. So be sure to keep it locked on the Arizona Sports app, 98.7 and ArizonaSports.com. You can follow me on all the social medias at TDrakerSports. Follow Lauren at Koval_Lauren. Follow the show at AZ Cards Corner. And we will see you guys next time.